Controversial announcement this week from French President Emmanuel Macron. The French leader saying his country will recognize Palestinian statehood at the United Nations General Assembly in September. France is the first major Western nation to take that step, with Macron saying he hopes it will spur peace in the region. President Trump sees it differently, slamming the move, saying it means nothing.
He's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter.
Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu also condemning France's decision, saying it, quote, rewards terror. That comes amid increasing alarm over the growing hunger crisis in Gaza. This week, U.S. officials withdrew from ceasefire talks over Hamas's intransigence, with President Trump saying the terror group never wanted a deal.
Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very, very bad.
Are you done with
and it got to be to a point where you're going to have to finish the job.
Meantime, a new UN report out this week said 9% of Gaza's children are suffering from severe malnutrition. That's up from 6% last month. Israel leveling the blame at Hamas and the UN. Joining me now, Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for House Affairs. Joel, thanks for being with us. The president said that Hamas is not serious about making a deal. We saw envoy Steve Witkoff pulling his team from negotiations. So what levers are actually left for the U.S. to pressure Hamas to get a deal done and, frankly, spare their own people from starvation?
Yeah, Ariel, it's great to be with you. There is a lot of pressure on Hamas right now, clearly, but, to get them to agree basically means they have to recognize reality, which is that they have lost this war and they are now leading the Palestinian people into a direction of total devastation. And they need to surrender and they need to allow for humanitarian aid to come in unfettered. But until the Trump team gets serious, and I got to say this really, that they have not put forward a serious negotiation effort to get the ceasefire to move Hamas out. It's been fits and starts, back and forth. They leveraged the Biden team's negotiations last year to get an initial ceasefire when they came in office, but nothing since. Until that happens, I think we're going to continue to see what we're seeing right now.
U.S. officials say that they will look for alternative options for freeing the remaining Israeli hostages who still are in Gaza. What, in your mind, could that look like?
That was a really interesting line from Steve Witkoff when he said that after departing the negotiations. And there are multiple ideas being bandied about. I'm hearing of the potential for some additional American military contractors potentially to get involved in supplementing the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is an American and Israeli-backed aid program. I'm also wondering if this means potential special forces, American troops as well. But, you brought up earlier about France and President Macron and putting forward the idea of recognizing the state of Palestine. What I'd prefer to see him do is actually get in the game, work with the United Nations, get solutions that are practical on the ground to help the Palestinian people get the aid that is in Gaza, but not getting to them. That would be much more useful and beneficial. That would be something alternative that could actually help save lives.
Yeah, so on the point of President Macron and his effort to recognize a Palestinian state, Trump fired back that you heard there, nothing he says matters. Does this unilateral action even help the Palestinians, or does it really just reward Hamas for digging in and refusing to negotiate to end their misery?
Well, Ariel, watching Israeli politics, it certainly doesn't help if you want to get the Israelis convinced that they have a way forward where they're going to have the international community behind them. It only corners them even further. And it's it's a utopianist idea, just like President Trump saying essentially Gaza on the Riviera back in March, and that all the Palestinians should leave. These are both incredibly utopianist ideas that are not helping the people right now on the ground in Gaza, not getting the hostages out, not moving forward on getting a ceasefire negotiated, and it only creates political distractions rather than pragmatic solutions.
So what is going on here? What is behind Macron's move, and could other countries follow suit?
Yeah, he's holding a peace conference next week in Paris, and so there's been a lot of pressure to make some kind of announcement, some kind of flash, and this will be the flash, and he clearly has a lot of domestic pressure as well. And of course, the reality is that ultimately a two-state solution is the long-term solution to this issue. But, he's putting it out there, and I think it's frankly only going to make it harder for France to be involved in finding solutions. And that's the real damage here, is that we need the UN, we need the United Nations Security Council members who work with the UN to give clarity to the Israeli government so that when the aid comes in, and there's, my understanding is almost 1,000 trucks of aid sitting inside Gaza, not being distributed because the mechanisms inside are not there. And that's what the UN used to do. Try to get the UN involved in a practical way rather than making the Israelis feel more isolated.
Yeah, and we are just now getting information from the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that they have distributed 94 million meals to date. They've said that the UN is not cooperating with them. What is the UN doing, and what is Hamas so afraid of when it comes to this aid getting out to its people?
Well, certainly Hamas, look, it is a death cult. And Hamas, it's bizarre, right? When you have a leadership of a zone that has lost its leadership, just been destroyed militarily, and sees its people getting massacred, it surrenders. But Hamas continues to want to keep this going and keep it going. But at the same time, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it's sort of like a new Band-Aid on aid that historically the United Nations was distributing. And of course, to add to more complexity, Israel does not trust the United Nations right now. So all of these factors are combined to create a perfect storm of aid and food not getting to the right people, and Hamas continuing to benefit from the propaganda of what they're putting out there. But the reality is too many people are dying. Too many Palestinian civilians are dying. The Israelis understand this. They've negotiated just recently with the World Food Program to try to get more UN support through that mechanism. And so these are the kinds of mechanisms we need. This is where the U.S. should be putting our energy, and France as well.
And hopefully those airdrops will come in soon and give at least some degree of relief to those most acutely suffering. Joel Rubin, we appreciate your insights.